Before the world even knew, a secret was already written into the first pages of Genesis. A secret that whispers of two creations, two humanities, and two destinies. For centuries, scholars debated, preachers avoided, and believers overlooked this shocking reality. Did God create two types of humans? One born of light, spoken into existence by Elohim, and another shaped from dust by the intimate hands of Yahweh. This isn't just a theory. It's a revelation that could change the way you see yourself, your struggles, and your purpose. Why does Genesis open with two different creation accounts? Why does Cain fear others when no one else is supposed to exist? Why do the names Elohim and Yahweh shift back and forth like two faces of the same eternal God? These mysteries have been hidden in plain sight, and yet they carry the power to explain the deepest tension inside every human being, the pull between spirit and flesh, between dominion and failure, between dust and light. In this video, we will uncover the hidden Genesis secret that explains the humanity of Genesis 1 and the humanity of Genesis 2, the true meaning of Cain's exile, and why Adam and Eve were more than just the first couple. They were the blueprint of every life. You'll discover how the Bible's creation mystery points directly to your own identity, and why you are not random, but chosen, marked, and redeemed. So, let me ask you, do you believe you are only dust, or do you carry the eternal light of Genesis 1? Comment your thoughts below, because this truth sparks debate that shakes faith to its core. And if you feel the weight of this revelation stirring your heart, don't just watch. Like, subscribe, and join this journey of unlocking the Bible's greatest secrets, so together we can awaken the union of light and dust inside us all. The first creation, humanity of light. In the very first chapter of Genesis, the words strike like thunder across eternity. Male and female, he created them. This is not the language of dust or struggle. This is the language of light, the breath of Elohim spoken into being before clay was ever touched. The Hebrew word bara is not about shaping or molding. It is about creation from nothing, a burst of divine imagination that cannot be explained by science or time. This is the humanity of light, born not from soil, but from the voice of God, destined for dominion, infused with a calling far greater than survival. Think about it. When you look at the world, there are people who shine in ways that cannot be explained, leaders who carry wisdom that feels older than their years, artists who seem to touch the eternal when they create, healers who bring comfort as if they carry heaven's fragrance. These are glimpses of Genesis 1 humanity, reflections of divine light walking among us. Yet too often, Genesis 1 is reduced by skeptics to mere poetry, just a poem, as if words written in fire were nothing more than metaphor. That mistake has blinded generations to the truth. This first humanity was a collective vision of what it means to be fully alive in the Spirit of God. And here lies the lesson. You were never meant to live small. You were never meant to shrink into the shadows of doubt, fear, or mediocrity. From the very beginning, humanity was entrusted with dominion, not domination over each other, but stewardship of creation, rulership that reflects the Creator himself. When you feed the hungry, when you speak life into someone's despair, when you choose light over darkness, you are living out Genesis chapter 1. That is your original blueprint, your divine DNA. But let's not miss the tension. If Genesis 1 humanity was light, Why then does Genesis 2 speak of dust? Why two stories, two beginnings, almost as if God was showing us two faces of ourselves? The first creation paints the ideal, the humanity of light, destined for glory. The second reveals the reality, humanity of dust, destined to wrestle. And between these two, we find the drama of every human life. The second creation. Humanity of dust. Genesis 2 shifts the scene dramatically. No longer is humanity spoken into existence. Instead, the Eternal bends low, hands in the soil, forming Adam from the dust of the ground. The Hebrew word here is yatsar, to mold, to shape, like a potter working with clay. This is the moment where God reveals himself not only as Elohim, the transcendent creator, but as Yahweh Elohim, the intimate craftsman. And from Adam's side, Eve is drawn forth, flesh of his flesh, bone of his bone, a union not of cosmic decree, but of personal touch. Here we see humanity of dust, vulnerable, fragile, dependent. Unlike the shining collective vision of Genesis 1, this creation begins with a single life, placed in a garden not to rule galaxies, but to tend, to guard, to obey. The lesson is sobering. This humanity carries free will, the capacity for choice, the terrifying possibility of disobedience. Adam and Eve's story is not about paradise lost as much as it is about responsibility ignored. And in their failure, we see our own. Every struggle you face in daily life echoes Genesis 2:2. The temptation to take shortcuts, the battle to stay faithful, the frustration of labor that feels endless. These are not random. They are written into the dust of our being. Yet notice this. Even in dust, God breathes his Spirit. Even in weakness, he stays near. Humanity of dust is not a curse, it is an opportunity. It is in our fragility that we discover dependence, in our limits that we learn surrender, in our failures that we encounter grace. Look at your own life. How many times have your greatest lessons been born from failure? How often has pain taught you more than success? Genesis 2 teaches that being human is not about flawless dominion, but about learning, stumbling, and being lifted again by the God who refuses to abandon the clay he shaped. And so we carry within us two truths. We are beings of light, spoken into destiny, and we are beings of dust, shaped in weakness. One calls us upward to glory, the other grounds us in humility. This tension is not a contradiction, but a sacred union, preparing us for what lies ahead. For to understand Cain, the hidden others, and the mysteries of exile and culture, we must first hold together these two beginnings: humanity of light and humanity of dust. Cain and the hidden others. Cain's story begins in blood and ends in fear. After striking down his brother Abel, he is marked not only by guilt, but by a chilling confession. Whoever finds me will kill me. But wait. Who are these others Cain is so afraid of? If Adam and Eve were the only humans, why would Cain tremble at the thought of vengeance from strangers? This mystery cracks open the door to something bigger, something hidden in plain sight. The possibility that Genesis 1's humanity of light still walked the earth alongside the dust-formed Adamic line. Cain becomes the bridge, a restless wanderer marked for protection, carrying within him the tension of two humanities colliding. Ancient Jewish texts, the Midrash, the Dead Sea Scrolls, whispers from rabbinic tradition, all hint that Cain's fear was not irrational. He knew there were others, descendants of that first creation, spiritual yet physical, light-born yet dwelling on earth. And in his exile, he does something astonishing. He builds. The very first city rises from the hands of a murderer-turned-builder. Out of judgment comes culture, music, craft, innovation. It is as if God allowed Cain's exile to spark a fire that would shape civilization. Out of brokenness, creativity. Out of punishment, legacy. Look around today, and you see the same pattern. Some of the world's greatest inventions, art and breakthroughs, come not from those who lived perfect lives, but from those marked by struggle. History remembers names scarred by failure, yet their exile gave birth to something enduring. Cain's story teaches us that exile does not erase destiny. Your mistakes may mark you, but they do not disqualify you. Instead, they can become the soil where culture, art, and wisdom grow. And here lies a question for you. Have you ever felt like Cain, cast out, misunderstood, carrying scars no one else sees? What if your exile is the very place God intends to awaken creativity in you? Comment below, because your story might inspire someone who thinks failure is the end, when in truth it can be the beginning of something greater. Cain's mark was not a curse, but a shield, a divine statement that even in rebellion, humanity remains under God's watchful eye. Elohim and Yahweh, two names, two faces of God. In these creation accounts, the shift in God's name is not accidental. In Genesis chapter 1, he is Elohim, the transcendent creator, vast and untouchable, the one who speaks galaxies into motion with a word. In Genesis 2, he is Yahweh Elohim, the covenantal Lord, personal, intimate, forming Adam with his own hands. Two names, two faces, one God. This is not contradiction. It is revelation. Elohim is the God of light, the voice that called humanity of Genesis 1 into being, majestic and infinite. Yahweh is the God of dust, the one who bends down, breathes into clay, and walks in the cool of the garden. Both are true, both are necessary, because humanity itself is both light and dust. If God appeared only as Elohim, he would remain distant, untouchable. If he appeared only as Yahweh, he would be reduced to the smallness of our daily struggles. But together, he is both transcendent and immanent, creator and redeemer, infinite and near. Theologians wrestled with this duality for centuries. The documentary hypothesis tried to reduce it to mere editing, two sources stitched together. Mystics in Kabbalah saw it as divine duality, the balance of mercy and judgment. But beyond scholarship, the truth is experiential. Haven't you felt God as Elohim, vast, mysterious, overwhelming in his grandeur? And haven't you also felt him as Yahweh, close, tender, whispering peace into your chaos? We encounter both because our lives require both. Imagine a moment of awe, a night sky so wide it swallows your breath. That is Elohim. Now picture the quiet comfort of prayer when you feel utterly broken and somehow peace seeps in. That is Yahweh. One name lifts your eyes to the stars, the other wipes the tears from your face. Together they reveal the full spectrum of divine love. The mistake is to assume tension equals error. Critics read the shift in names and cry contradiction, but the truth is richer. It is not an error, it is a tapestry. Elohim and Yahweh are not rivals, but partners, revealing to us that the God who rules the cosmos is the same God who cares for your heartache. This truth is healing because it means the Creator of galaxies is not too far to hear your prayer, and the friend who walks beside you is not too small to hold eternity. This is the lesson. Do not limit God to one face. When you need power, He is Elohim. When you need presence, He is Yahweh. When you are crushed by dust, He breathes light into you. When you are blinded by light, He grounds you in dust. That is why your faith must embrace both. To live as children of Genesis is to hold the paradox. God is both infinite and intimate, beyond you and within you. And so we move from Cain's hidden others and the revelation of exile to the duality of God Himself, because the story of humanity cannot be told without both, the bridge between two creations and the God who wears two names. From here, the path leads us deeper into the blueprint of Adam and Eve, the union of light and dust, and the true destiny of what it means to be human. Adam and Eve as the blueprint of humanity. The names themselves tell the story. Adam means earth, a creature of dust, fragile and temporary. Eve means life, the one through whom generations would flow. Together, they are not flawless icons, but chosen vessels, carrying both weakness and glory. Eden was never meant to be a static paradise. It was a training ground, a sacred classroom where love, obedience, and responsibility were tested. Too many people imagine the garden as perfection lost forever, but in truth, it was the beginning of a process. God was shaping humanity through trial, not through instant perfection. The lesson is timeless. Your failures do not erase your destiny. They prepare it. Adam and Eve teach us that being human is not about avoiding mistakes, but about letting mistakes become soil where redemption grows. Think of your own journey, moments where shame tried to define you, where choices left scars, yet somehow, through grace, you were reshaped. That is Eden echoing in your story. Their failure is not a curse over you, but a mirror of your own humanity. And God does not abandon the blueprint. Even when Adam and Eve walked out of the garden with heads bowed, He clothed them, He covered their shame. That covering whispers of a greater covering yet to come, when Christ Himself would wrap humanity in redemption. The blueprint was never broken. It was always leading forward. So when you stumble, remember Adam and Eve, chosen, not perfect, yet still the foundation on which God builds His story. The union of light and dust, our true identity. Now comes the revelation that ties everything together. Humanity is not only light or only dust. We are both. In Genesis chapter 1, we see the humanity of light, born of Elohim's word, created to rule and shine. In Genesis 2, we see the humanity of dust, shaped by Yahweh's hands, vulnerable and weak. And within every heartbeat, those two realities wrestle. You feel it every day, the longing to rise higher, to love deeply, to shine brighter, colliding with the gravity of temptation, exhaustion, and failure. This tension is not a flaw, it is sacred. It means you carry the divine and the human in one vessel. This truth points directly to Christ, the Word made flesh. In Him, the two creations unite perfectly. He embodies the light of Genesis 1 and the dust of Genesis 2, radiance wrapped in weakness, eternity clothed in mortality. On the cross, he reconciled the spiritual humanity and the physical humanity, proving once and for all that our destiny is not divided but united. The breath of Elohim and the clay of Yahweh meet in us, making us living paradoxes of glory and fragility. Consider your own life. When you feel the fire of purpose burning in your chest, that is the light. When you collapse under the weight of imperfection, that is the dust. Both are true and both are holy. Do not despise your dust. It is the place God breathes. Do not hide your light. It is the gift God entrusted. Your true identity is not either or, but both and. You are a union of heaven and earth, carrying eternity in your spirit and humility in your body. And this is where healing flows, because when you embrace both sides, you no longer live in shame over your weakness or pride over your strength. You live balanced, whole, authentic. This union sets you free to walk in grace and power at the same time. It teaches you to forgive yourself, to forgive others, to live in humility without losing your fire. This is the secret Genesis has been whispering for millennia. You are not broken by design. You are complete in your paradox. Lessons, warnings, and hope. But with revelation comes responsibility. Too often people make two mistakes. Some ignore Genesis chapter 1 humanity, living as if they are nothing but dust, small, powerless, forgotten. Others over-spiritualize Genesis 2 humanity, pretending their physical needs, choices, and failures don't matter. Both extremes rob you of truth. You are not just dust, and you are not just light. To deny either is to deny your true identity. The warning is clear. Do not forget who you are. If you live only as dust, you will shrink into despair. If you live only as light, you will float into pride and illusion. The path is balance, walking as a being of dust and light, sacred tension that grounds you and lifts you at once. And here is the hope. God uses both your failures and your faith. He takes the dust of your broken choices and turns them into lessons, while igniting the light of your spirit to guide others. Nothing is wasted. Your scars can shine, your weakness can speak, your dust can carry glory. Hope is not found in escaping your humanity, but in embracing it fully, knowing God has already reconciled it through Christ. So let me ask you, where in your life do you deny your light? Where do you deny your dust? Comment your thoughts below, because your honesty might set someone else free. And as you reflect, hold this promise. Your origin is divine, your struggles are human, and your destiny is eternal. Live in the union of light and dust, and you will carry healing not only for yourself, but for a world desperate for hope. From the very first words of Genesis, your story was already written, not just as dust, not just as light, but as a breathtaking union of both. Elohim spoke you into existence with power, and Yahweh formed you with his hands in tenderness. That means you are not an accident, not a random flicker in the universe. You are chosen, marked, and carried by a purpose bigger than anything this world can measure. Every breath you take carries eternity. Every struggle you face echoes the dust of Adam, and every spark of hope in you reflects the light of the first creation. This is your identity, divine light wrapped in human dust. And the greatest tragedy is when people forget this origin and live as though they are either one or the other. either chained to the dirt of despair or lost in illusions of untouchable light. But the greatest beauty is when you embrace both, when you realize that your weakness does not cancel your calling, and your failures do not erase your destiny. Picture this. The same God who flung galaxies into space also bends low enough to catch your tears. The same Elohim who spoke the cosmos into motion is the same Yahweh who whispers peace into your chaos. That is not contradiction, it is revelation. It means the Creator of all things is also the Redeemer of your heart. You are seen, known, and loved in ways beyond comprehension. And if you've ever felt too broken, too ordinary, too flawed to matter, remember Adam and Eve. They were not flawless, they were fragile, they failed, and yet they remained the blueprint of humanity. Their story is your story, chosen, imperfect, but never abandoned. Think about Cain, too, marked, wandering, yet still protected, still allowed to build. Even exile became a birthplace of culture, music, and legacy. What if your exile, your scars, your wilderness is not the end, but the soil of something extraordinary? Comment your thoughts below, because this is where the conversation comes alive. Do you believe failure can become a foundation for greatness? Or do you think Cain's mark was only a curse? Let's wrestle with these questions together, because sometimes the most controversial questions open the deepest doors to truth. And here is where hope explodes. Christ himself stepped into our paradox. The word of Genesis 1 became the dust of Genesis 2. He carried both light and clay, eternity and mortality. And on the cross, he reconciled them forever. That means you no longer have to choose. You are free to live as both fully human and fully alive in divine purpose. When you wake up tired, you carry dust. When you rise to inspire, you carry light. Both are holy. Both are you. This is the secret of Genesis revealed. Humanity was never divided. It was always meant to be whole. So as you leave this moment, carry this truth like fire in your bones. You are the union of dust and light, sacred and chosen. Let it heal the shame that told you you're not enough. Let it ignite the dreams you buried under fear. Let it remind you that even your failures can become foundations of beauty. And if this revelation has stirred something in your heart, if you feel the light and dust within you awakening, I invite you to walk further with us. Hit that like button, subscribe so you don't miss what's coming, and drop a comment sharing your own reflection, because your voice matters in this journey. And if you found value here, if these words have lifted you, inspired you, or given you a glimpse of light in the middle of your dust, I gently invite you to support this work in any way you can. Think of it as sharing energy, fueling the fire so that more souls can hear these truths. Even the smallest act of support is not small, it is priceless, and I thank you with my whole heart. Because together, we are building something more than content. We are building a community of light and dust, a family awakening to its divine origin. Remember this always. You were spoken into being by Elohim, and you were formed by the hands of Yahweh. You carry the eternal breath within you. Do not forget your origin. Do not shrink into despair or float into illusion. Live balanced, live awake, live as the sacred union you were meant to be. For when you do, you will not only transform your own life, you will shine as a beacon of healing in a world desperate for hope. And that is the call of Genesis. the hidden secret now revealed. You are dust kissed by light, and light grounded in dust. Live it, breathe it, and never let go.